Chapter 51. The next day, when Serafina was changing her clothes, she received a call from an unknown number. Unexpectedly, it was Emily. "Serafina, I'm Emily." After introducing herself, she didn't say anything more. "What's the matter?" The other end hesitated for a moment before saying, "I heard from Logan that you saved me." "Thank you." Serafina was stunned for a moment, then smiled faintly and said honestly, "The one who saved you was Logan. I thought he had bad intentions towards you, so I kicked him again. Of course, when I kicked him, I didn't know that girl was you. If I had known, I might have left." When Emily heard this, she was not polite and said with a smile, "But he said that after you knew it was me, you even scolded him for bullying minors." Serafina was a little shocked. Emily was strange. Just such a harmless sentence made her innocently laugh. At first hearing, she even seemed very grateful. She was not used to it, so she felt a little awkward. "It was all a misunderstanding. Actually, Logan saved you, but in the end I treated him like a bad person." "But you are really," she added another sentence, "at such a young age, why do you want to join in on everything?" "I just wanted to find a man to spend the night with." Emily listened and looked a little aggrieved. "I just drank a glass of water, I don't know how I passed out." "Seriously, they want to sleep with me but they have to put drugs on me, can't they just say it directly?" "Emily, she couldn't find the right adjective." Emily spoke like a radio, speaking even more seriously, "But don't worry, I know how to protect myself. I usually ask my partners to use condoms. The last time I got pregnant, it was because I ran out of condoms, but I didn't expect it to happen right away. This lesson has taught me, I must not have a lucky mentality. I won't dare do that again. You have to remember what I told you." Serafina held the phone, unable to stand still. Since when have she and Emily been this close? She was speechless from beginning to end. Emily didn't know how long it had been since she had talked. Her words were like a machine gun, she couldn't get in. "This society is so unfair. It's normal for men to sleep with many women, but women who do so are scolded. Actually, sex is a normal thing, just like eating and drinking. Many girls are like that, but Lily is different." The first half of the speech still made Serafina have a headache about why this girl was so brave, but the last sentence caught her attention. "Lily? What does it have to do with her?" When mentioning Lily, Emily no longer had the same fighting spirit as before, but instead seemed regretful. "From the bottom of my heart, I feel that Lily and I are on the same path. I guess she is also the type of girl who is addicted to sex." "Why do you say that?" "When you called the police, I was lying on the ground and saw Lily go down to the underground wine cellar. She was alone, she went by herself." Serafina was stunned. Lily went by herself? Could it be that she was drugged? However, the important thing now was not Lily. Her voice turned cold. "I didn't call the police, you heard wrong." The other end of the line paused, mumbled softly, "I almost forgot what Logan told me," and then immediately smiled. "That's right, I misheard. Don't worry, I won't mention this again." Serafina thought for a moment, then asked, "Is Logan close to your brother?" Emily was very straightforward. "He's very close to my brother. No, he's very close to Clark, so he knows me too." "Close?" Serafina repeated. "Yes, close. Logan Blake and Mason Clark were born from the same mother, and they were even closer than Jaden Blake, who had the same father." Serafina realized, no wonder the Blake family was developing like wildfire in Macau. Not only were there two brothers, Logan and Jaden, who was morally depraved but had a brain, but also the mafia boss Mason. Protecting them. If they weren't the bosses in Macau, who would be? However, Logan must not be very close to Jaden, otherwise after she called the police, why would he tell her to run away? And even knowing that the police would come, he delayed a long time before informing Jaden. He didn't give Jaden time to withdraw and clean up, so after the police arrived, he hurriedly ran away, and many girls at the scene were caught red-handed. She asked Emily how long she planned to stay. Emily was not happy. "I am at the customs gate now, preparing to leave. There is a storm in Macau early tomorrow morning, I have to leave early." She hung up the phone, looked out the window. The rain was pouring, the wind was raging, the sky was filled with dark clouds. According to the weather forecast, the storm would hit Macau around 12:30 tonight. She and Harrison should have left Macau and returned to China. She looked in the mirror, took a deep breath. Now she had the opportunity to challenge Logan, everything else was up to God's will. The girl in the mirror had her hair down, her skin was fair, and she was wearing a bright red strapless evening gown, giving off a mature and extremely sexy look. The casino had an age limit, although Harrison could have taken her in, it was better to have a more mature makeup. So this time, she wore heavy makeup, her lips were red, especially her eyeliner was very thick, making her black eyes even more profound. The waist of the dress was tight, the skirt was 100 soft pleats that fell down, highlighting her slender waist. When she went out in this manner, Harrison, who was waiting outside, also turned his head and fixed his eyes on her. She was shy, too mature, right? Not pretty, right? No, very pretty. He came closer, very naturally holding her hand, looking at her a few more times, feeling that her mature makeup seemed to have the power to charm people. Different from your usual self, beautiful in a different way. She also looked at him, feeling that he was wearing a suit, she calmly let out a breath, smiled, let's go. The Blake family's high-end private casino was located in VIP room number 5 on the top floor of the Venetian casino. When they entered, they had to go through the usual security check, but his bodyguards were not allowed in. When the staff checked, she saw him handing a gun to Miles from his shirt, which made her feel strangely heavy. After checking everything, the waiters bowed respectfully, raising their hands towards the living room door. On the magnificent corridor, there were dark postmodern oil paintings hanging along both walls. Her white right hand was placed on his arm, slowly following him into the room, the thick soft carpet gave the illusion that it would fall down. Turning a corner, he leaned closer to her, smiling and asking, "Are you nervous?" She shook her head, "You're here." The two waiters standing at the end of the corridor opened the brown wooden door to VIP room number 5. The room was decorated with an extremely noble and elegant style, with transparent layered glass chandeliers, Renaissance-style colored frescoes, a dimly lit bar, and a cluster of warm and quiet sofas. The most eye-catching thing was the large rosewood table placed right in the middle of the hall, with piles of cards and casino chips placed right in the middle of the table. The private room was so spacious, but there were only 7 or 8 people participating in the game and the card shuffler, and there was also a waiter standing in the far corner, facing the wall. Only when the game was over would he turn around to serve. On the left of the table were Logan and Jaden, and Alex, whom she hadn't seen for a long time, who looked more cold-blooded than before. On both sides were 2 people she didn't know, and on the right of the table were Andrew and Emma. Emma's face was a little pale, looking quite nervous, but Andrew still kept an indifferent expression, he had never lost a game. In the tense silence, Serafina followed Harrison to sit on the sofa nearby, feeling the soles of her feet slightly cold. The stakes and psychological pressure in this high-class secret gambling were so great that outsiders couldn't imagine it. Even gambling in other luxurious VIP rooms would be considered a small fry if it met gambling here. Other gambles usually involve tens of millions, but Logan's gambles usually involve hundreds of millions of the company's assets. The Blake brothers are very good at gambling, especially baccarat, which is also the reason why in recent years they have held so many floating stocks of large corporations in China, most of which they won on the gambling table. Logan's underground gambling is very famous in this circle, but it is only for private invitations, and is not an official business registration category of the gambling company, so it is not protected by the local government. However, it does not matter. Because if anyone loses and defaults on their debt, there will be the mafia boss Mason Clark to collect it for them. In Macau, there are 5 types of public gambling including casino, gambling, horse racing, lottery and football betting. When Serafina sat on the chair, the first game between Andrew and Jaden had just ended, the 2 strangers had already left, the result of the second game changed to Andrew and Logan. The 2 players casually said specifically what they bet and what they asked the other to bet. Andrew said lightly, "The bet is 20% of the Blake group that just won the bet. Request the other 10% of the Blake group." Serafina choked and stared. Andrew had won 20% of the family group from the 2 Blake brothers? It could be said that he had no psychological burden in this game. Even if he lost everything, the losers would still be the Blake family. Logan smiled. Bet 20% of the Blake group in my hands. Request the 20% you just won plus a lucky kiss from this lady. Logan looked at Emma, smiling very gently and politely. Serafina silently looked at Harrison, who was also silently thinking. She looked at Andrew again, clearly noticing that his expression had changed, no longer the previous relaxed look, but slightly furrowed his brows. The exciting thing about the optional betting method is that if you want something from the other party, you just name it. As long as you win, even if it's a human life, you can get it. After the two people have stated their requests, if they can't meet the other person's request and retreat halfway, they will have to lose everything they just bet. Serafina and Emma both thought that Andrew could absolutely play this game, because even if he lost, he would lose the Blake family's money, but if he won, the total was 30%, and the Blake family would change hands. But in the blink of an eye, Andrew suddenly stood up, grabbed Emma's hand and walked out. Emma was surprised, and before she could say a word, she was taken away. There was only a pile of colorful coins lying in front of where Andrew had just sat. After the door closed, the room was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. For some reason, Serafina's eyes were a little stinging. It turned out that there really was a man who didn't need a country, just a beauty. He dared to bet a few $100 million in assets, but he didn't want to bet on a kiss from Emma. This confident man had never lost in gambling, even if the winning rate was 99.99%, he still didn't want the girl he loved to kiss someone else because of the remaining 0.01% probability. He knew he wouldn't lose, but still didn't bet. What a silly couple. Serafina blinked, looked at Logan, only to see someone who had just won so easily was looking at her deeply, smiling faintly, after a while said, "Didn't Miss Serafina want to challenge me?" She pulled herself together, stood up, and walked to sit down in the seat opposite Logan. She clenched her fists, looked at him across from her through the light shining on the rosewood table, and calmly said, "I remember Mr. Blake gave me the right to challenge, so today you must accept my challenge." His eyes were shining brightly under the light. "What game do you hope I play with you?" She took a deep breath, the corners of her red lips curved slightly. "Infinite bluff." He was momentarily stunned, his eyes darkened. "Infinite bluff, the way to play this game is very simple, even a bit retarded. Shuffle 7 decks of cards together, each person draws cards in order, starting from the second card, you can choose to increase the bet or admit defeat and quit the game. There are 2 ways to end the game. The first way is to admit that your cards are smaller than the opponent's cards to avoid causing further losses. The second way is after both sides draw 5 cards and turn them over. Except for the last turn, in the whole game, no cards are played or put down. The skills of remembering cards and guessing are useless. The 2 most useful factors are one is luck, the other is psychology. Normally speaking, drawing 5 out of several hundred cards are all random, useless cards. During the game, the player must show that his cards are very big, psychologically forcing the opponent to give up first. After studying the art of gambling for a long time, Serafina discovered that she could never be sure of winning. Only this infinite bluff game could pull her and her opponent into a balanced position. She also admired Andrew's superb technique, but she could not entrust the fate of the Beaumont family to others. After all, there was the saying what if, who would take responsibility then? She looked at Logan, "Do you have any other opinions?" He shook his head, raised his eyebrows and smiled, "I find it very interesting," and finally said, "Miss Serafina is a guest, please." He made an inviting gesture towards her. The staff started shuffling the cards. Serafina looked at the 7 decks of cards that were shuffled together, then looked at Logan. "I guess you have about 13% of Smith Transport shares in your hand right now? The 8% you originally had, plus the amount Vivian exchanged with you, I guess it's probably 5%. His eyes flashed, looking straight at her. "Miss Beaumont is really smart." This wasn't hard to guess. Vivian was so close to Jaden. Besides harming Lily, there was another reason, which was to tactfully ask about the Ashford Group shares in the Blake family's hands. Vivian didn't have much cash to buy them back, she could only take something out to exchange. Vivian only had 7% of Smith Transportation in her hands, but Ashford's shares were quite concentrated. The number of floating shares that the Blake family could buy was not much. In addition, the Ashfords' company shares were more valuable than the Beaumont family Smith Group. Perhaps Vivian only needed to use 5% to exchange for all the Ashford shares that the Blake family held. 13%, this number was starting to get dangerous. Today Serafina must use all her ability to win back more. Since that's the case, my request to you is to use Smith's shares as a bet. Logan shrugged, not showing any pressure. All right. As for me, I don't have any requests for Miss Beaumont's bet for now. At first glance, he looked very gentlemanly. She indifferently replied, thank you. The game began. She drew a card, glanced at it, then closed it, her face expressionless. He also drew a card, as calm as her. The two of them drew another card, and they could start betting. She looked up at him, calmly, 0.5% Smith Transport. This bet was in the middle range, not too much, not too little. He was very gentle, follow. 1%. The two of them drew the third card. After a quick glance, she closed it, 1.5%. He also did the same, 2%. The fourth card was drawn in a dead silence. She quietly put away the card, looked up at him, and said, 3%. He looked at her calmly. If she followed, the bet would definitely increase. He carefully observed her. Starting from the moment she drew the first card, she always appeared very careful, not revealing even the slightest emotion, especially when looking at the cards. Her beautiful face was stiff as if frozen. For this kind of novice, he couldn't tell whether she was pretending or really nervous. Someone who didn't understand gambling like her really gave him a headache. Maybe he had to observe one more time. He glanced at his cards, 3 Ks, 1A, it was already a very good hand. He didn't believe that her cards were better than his. Follow, 3.5%. The last draw. She slowly drew a card, glanced at it, then put it down. She looked at him again, her jet-black eyes were as calm as the dim light behind her, her voice was not loud, but very clear, 5%. He looked at her without blinking. With 3K2A, he would definitely win. He curled his lips and smiled, follow. 6%. After speaking, he saw her slender fingertips unconsciously press a card on the table, probably nervous. The card shuffler asked, are you sure you won't withdraw? If she withdrew, she would lose 2.5% of Smith's shares, and if Logan withdrew, he would lose 3%. She relaxed her eyes, the light reflected on her long eyelashes, creating a faint curtain. Logan leisurely looked at her, the light reflected on the table, creating a thin halo of light. Behind that halo, her face that was quietly contemplating had an unusually beautiful and indifferent look. He touched his chin, slightly squinting his eyes. Jaden beside him leaned over and whispered in his ear, brother, we didn't discuss conditions in the first game, but in the second game, we have to add in, we want her. Jaden smiled, his eyes shimmering with debauchery, let her have fun with us too for one night. Logan curled his lips, it didn't seem bad. While he was thinking, her eyelashes had already lifted, revealing her jet-black pupils, no withdrawal. Logan also smiled lazily, spitting out 2 words, please follow.